Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. For today's video, I'm going to be doing a primer showdown. I love doing these videos where we put products head to head, especially products that are very similar to each other, even similar in price point, not necessarily comparing a drugstore to a high-end, but just comparing two very similar products to see which one comes out on top. So for this showdown, we are going to be doing primers, specifically Poreless drugstore primers, and these are the two that I'm going to be comparing today. The first one is the ever so famous e.l.f. Poreless Putty primer. This primer has broken the internet and sold out multiple times. A lot of people say that this is very similar to the touch-up primer, but the primer that I want to see how this compares to today is actually the Catrice Poreless Blur primer. I was looking through my collection, actually planning another video, looking at different products when I saw these two primers, and something just sparked in my head that these might be very similar. These both are supposed to be poreless primers, and upon doing more research on these primers online, the descriptions are very similar, and they are also the same exact price, pretty much the same exact price. This is $7.99, this is $8. So that made me even more intrigued to do this video. I want to see if these two primers, since they are so similar in so many ways, maybe just besides the consistency of them, look the same on the skin, if they perform the same, and maybe one will even be better than the other. I had a lot of fun doing this video when I compared the Tarte Shape Tape to the Too Faced Born This Way. If you guys want to go see how that concealer showdown turned out, definitely make sure to click the card right here, or I will have it listed in the description box if you want to check that one out after this video. But I really hope that you guys enjoy seeing this primer showdown, and let's just see which of these Poreless drugstore $8 primers comes out on top. So let's get started. Okay, so let's just quickly jump on into a little bit of basic info about these two primers, just so you guys can see the differences and also of course their similarities. So like I mentioned earlier, this is the Catrice Poreless Blur primer, and this retails for $7.99, and then this is the e.l.f. Poreless Putty primer, and this retails for $8 exactly. In the Catrice primer, you are getting 30 milliliters or 1.10 fluid ounces of product, and you are getting a little less product in the e.l.f. where you are getting 0.74 ounces of product. So for being the same price, you are getting less in the e.l.f. one, but like I said, I don't know if that has to do with the consistency differences in the products. Both of these products from e.l.f. and Catrice are cruelty-free, and they are both vegan, with the first ingredient in the e.l.f. one being water and the first ingredient in the Catrice one being dimethicone. And the last thing that I want to do before we get on into application is just read you guys the description on each of these products, just so you could get more of a feel and more of a sense for what type of primers these are supposed to be. So first, starting off with the Catrice, it says a velvet smooth primer with a soft focused effect. It makes pores and fine lines invisible. Use alone or under makeup for a long-lasting flawless finish. And then speaking about the e.l.f. primer, it says this skin perfecting Poreless Putty primer is infused with squalene to help grip makeup for all day wear and help protect skin from moisture loss. The velvety texture glides effortlessly over the skin, smoothing over imperfections for a poreless effect. So far what I'm getting from both of these is that they both are gonna give a like velvety smooth texture to the skin. I really do love both of these primers. I think they both do what they claim, but I'm excited to see how they go next to each other. So if that is something you guys are interested in seeing, we are going to jump right on into the application now. So I'm just going to jump right into it. I'm going to be putting the Catrice primer on the left side of my face today. So the consistency of the Catrice primer is supposedly like a moussey consistency. If you guys can see right there, I would say that's pretty accurate. Definitely like a silicone mixed with a mousse, if that makes any sense. So I'm just going to go ahead and start applying this on the skin how I normally would. If you guys can see, I feel like it instantly has that blurring, airbrushed, soft focused effect on the skin. So I'm really going to try my hardest to keep this on only half of the face. So just zooming you guys in so you could hopefully see the effect that the Catrice one has on the skin. I feel like this one is truly giving me that airbrushed, velvety, smooth effect. If you look at it compared to the side of my face with no product, this one is definitely more shiny. You can definitely still see a little more of that texture as well as my pores. Whereas here, I feel like everything just looks nice and airbrushed, and I feel like you could even see the definitive spot on my forehead of the primer and then no primer. But so far, far, this is looking really good. Let's go ahead and jump on into the e.l.f. side now. Also, you guys, I don't know why my under eyes look so dark and like swollen today, but please ignore that. Hopefully everything will look better and come together when I put on some concealer. So for the e.l.f. primer, I'm going to be using my opposite hand on the right side of my face. I think this is going to be your left on your screen that you are watching this video, of course. So of course the e.l.f. one is going to be a different consistency. I don't know if you guys can kind of see that in there. Definitely a more putty, I would say. It's almost like a thick solidified lotion. Do you guys know when you have like a lotion or a face cream or something and it gets a little solidified on the nozzle? I feel like that is kind of how this primer feels. So I'm also just going to apply it just like I did the Catrice one. This one is a little bit more of a, like I said, just like a lotiony consistency opposed to the Catrice, which gives me more of that airbrush look. I almost feel like the e.l.f. one is overall more hydrating, and I always need to use a little bit more product than I do the Catrice one. Just by seeing these side by side, I instantly can see and also feel on my skin that the e.l.f. does have a little bit more of like a moisture hydrating factor to it. I feel like the skin looks a little bit more dewy. It also feels way more supple and hydrated, whereas the Catrice one doesn't feel dry by any means, but when you run your finger over it, it definitely has like that velvety feeling to it. Definitely more of like a mattified feeling to it, whereas the e.l.f. one is a little bit more hydrating, a little bit more tacky, and I'm sure you guys, like I said, can just see side by side, this half of my face has more of a glow than this half of my face. Just got a little closer, so hopefully you guys can see the differences in the textures of the primer. This one being a little bit more almost like matte and airbrush, but it doesn't feel dry on the skin at all, and then this one has that little bit of a hydrating luminous look to it. So I think they both look nice. As far as my pores, because obviously these are both poreless primers, these ones are a little bit more emphasized on the e.l.f. side. I'm thinking that is just because my skin is more on the luminous side right now, so I'm really curious to see how these look when they are both topped off and finished with foundation. And also, if you guys are wondering, I do have some texture and like a little bit of breakout above my brows right now, but I totally wasn't thinking this morning and I carved out my brows with concealer, so I'm already concealed and set right there, so I can't put any primer over that. So if you guys see any texture above my brows, just know that that has nothing to do with either of these primers. So I hope you guys can get a good sense of how these primers look by themselves, but of course the true test is the foundation and everything on top. So let's see how that goes. So for my foundation today, I'm going to be using, of course, my Maybelline Superstay, nothing new, my tried and true favorite foundation ever that I know looks great. I have two clean foundation brushes that I love. Again, apply the foundation exactly the same on both sides, and two separate brushes just so I don't transfer the primer on either side of my face. So let's do the Catrice side first and see how the foundation goes on. So here's the side of foundation on top of the Catrice primer. I think it looks really beautiful. I think everything looks really nice and smooth. The one thing that I noticed is that I do think my forehead looks a little bit dry. I always do have more of a dry forehead, and it's definitely coming through. So I definitely don't think it's smoothed out like the flakiness on my forehead very well, or maybe it just has like a little bit too much of a mattifying effect to use on my forehead. But as far as it looks on the rest of my face, my nose, my chin, I think it looks really, really beautiful. I did just notice that I am getting a hive right here on the side with the e.l.f. Poreless Putty Primer, which I think is a little strange because I've used this primer so many times. I've been using it for a few months now, and I've never experienced a hive, or at least I never had a hive and associated it with this product. So I don't know what that is. I don't think I'm allergic to this primer. It's never bothered me before, but I'm gonna go ahead and put the foundation on. It is allergy season. Sometimes I just get random hives out of nowhere. I don't think it's from the e.l.f. primer though. I definitely hope not, but I'm gonna put on the foundation and we will definitely monitor my skin on this side throughout the day to see what happens, if anything else forms. It's not itchy or anything at all. I just saw the redness and there's like a little tiny hive in the middle of it. So I'm gonna go in with the same amount of product here. Foundation is done on both sides of the face. I think both sides of the face look really good. Looking at the primers and the foundation side by side right now, I feel like I like each one for different reasons. This is where it gets a little tricky. So first off, analyzing the Catrice side, I definitely have to say it does give overall more of a matte finish, whereas I think on the e.l.f. side, my skin looks a little bit more lively, a little bit more healthy, definitely has more of a glow, a little bit more of that look of hydration coming through from the e.l.f. primer. So I think if we are looking at this from a finish sense, the e.l.f. one for me, I personally like a little bit better right now just because I do prefer more of that healthy look. One thing that I like more about the Catrice though right now is the overall visible smoothness of it. I think the Catrice one makes my skin overall look more smooth, more airbrushed. I think my texture and my pores aren't as visible, where I do see them more on the e.l.f. side. Maybe I have to get close. I hope it's translating the same on camera. My under eyes look so dark. I don't know why. So here are my pores on the e.l.f. side, and on the Catrice side, I feel like, of course, they're not going to be perfect and smooth unless I had some real life Facetune or something like that. But I feel like overall the skin on the Catrice side looks more smoothed, whereas the e.l.f. one you could still see a little bit more of that texture peeking through. But I think I personally like the overall glow and the overall healthy plump look of the e.l.f. one. Hopefully you guys can see what I'm talking about. Maybe if I lower the brightness a little bit, you'll be able to see my skin better. I just feel like I'm looking a little bit more dry down here around my mouth compared to this side is way less dry. So I definitely think, although the Catrice one is blurring and poreless, it does have more of a mattifying element to it compared to the e.l.f. one. The e.l.f. one is more lively and glowy but less poreless, if that makes sense. Okay, you guys, I am in some desperate need of some concealer today, some bronzer, highlighter, all of that good stuff. So I'm gonna go ahead, finish up my face, and then I will be back to talk a little bit more about the primers, and then we will go on into the wear test and everything. So I'll be back in a sec. All right, you guys, so my makeup is done. As far as all the other products went on top, I did not see a difference between the two primers. I thought everything went on smoothly, and I think everything looks just as vibrant, just as smooth and blended out. I do not see any differences in the products that I put on top of my foundation. Analyzing the primers as a whole so far, I do think that they look pretty similar. I still do stand by what I said about the Catrice side looking more matte. The e.l.f. side definitely did get a little more matte after I applied some powder, but I just feel like there's just a different liveliness to the side of the foundation that I'm not seeing on the Catrice side. The Catrice side still is looking a little bit more on the dry side, but almost like when I look from far away, the Catrice side is still the side that looks more smooth. So I am kind of associating that with the fact that it is more matte. That usually tends to go hand in hand, but I do think my pores look smaller on the side with the Catrice primer. So far, after having the primers on for a short amount of time side by side, just to give another quick recap, I probably will keep repeating myself a lot in this video, but so far I do think the Catrice one is more smoothing, but at the same time it is giving me more of a matte look, and I am looking a little dry in some places, whereas the e.l.f. is less smoothing and less airbrushed, but it is a little bit more healthy looking and hydrating on the skin. Right now it has been an hour since I applied the primer, so I am going to call the first check-in time at 1 o'clock, and I am going to check in with you guys throughout the day and hopefully end the wear test around 9 or 10 o'clock. I'm really interested to see how these are going to wear side by side, so I will see you guys in a little bit for our first check-in. Hi guys, guys, so I'm back with an update for this primer showdown. It is 5:36, almost 5:40, so I've had the primer on for 4.5 hours. So I figured it was time to take a look at it and update you guys on how the primer is wearing. Looking at my face side by side, the first impression is that I seriously do not think that these look that different at all, especially now that it's been a few hours and I feel like my natural oils are kind of melding with all the product on the skin. These are looking very, very similar to me. I still do think my pores look smaller on the side where I have the Catrice primer opposed to the side with the e.l.f. primer. But let me zoom you guys in so you guys can get a good look at the primers after 4.5 hours of wear. So again, the Catrice side and then the e.l.f. side. I still think that they are holding up really well. Coverage wise and everything like that, I still feel like my face is pretty intact. I want to know what you guys think as well, and I'm curious to see how these primers look on my computer screen upon editing. So like I said, so far I think everything is looking the same opinions that I had earlier. If anything changes, I will pop it up on the screen, but those are the primers after 4.5 hours of wear. I'm going to try to wear it for a few more hours for you guys so we can get like a true 8 to 9 hour wear out of the primers. So I will see you guys then. So we have reached the end of our primer showdown. It is now 8:57 p.m. So I've had this on for just about 8 hours. At 9 o'clock, it will be 8 hours since I first applied the primer. The first thing that I want to say and point out is that I think my skin looks really good. I think my foundation lasted beautifully throughout the day. I don't see any breaking down on one side more than the other. I believe I also mentioned that in my last check-in, but at the end of the day, for having this on for 8 hours, my foundation still looks beautiful. It is in place in every single spot on my face. So just to conclude this primer showdown, I really think that these two primers, the e.l.f. Poreless Putty and the Catrice Poreless Blur Primer, are incredibly similar. I really don't see a difference on my face. I even asked a few people throughout the day, my mom, my brother, and they really said that my face looks really similar. In a way, I'm not surprised that these are so similar. I kind of have a feeling, just because I love both of these separately and they have a lot of the same claims and stuff like that, I really had a feeling that these would be similar, but I'm really happy that I got the chance to test them side by side to see how it worked out. So I believe that is everything for this primer showdown. I think I'm gonna leave this one up to you guys. I don't think at this point in time I recommend one over the other. I really feel like these are such similar primers. They essentially do the same thing. The one thing that I do have to say though is that I think if you are more on the oily side, you are going to enjoy the Catrice one more because it does have a little bit more of a mattifying quality, I have noticed. Whereas if you are more on the dry side, you are going to like the e.l.f. one because it does have more of that hydrating side to it. If you are normally combo, kind of like me and my skin type, you can definitely wear them interchangeably. I would be really curious to see how these primers worked in combination, seeing that I did feel like the Catrice one masked my pores just a little bit better than the e.l.f. one. I'd be really curious to see how the e.l.f. one would look all over my face and how the Catrice one would look just in my pore area right here. But like I said, you guys, I don't think I have a preference. I'm going to leave this one up to you, your personal skin type and your preference on how you like your skin to look. All right, you guys, so that is going to complete this video. That is the end of this primer showdown. Definitely let me know if you guys think one looks better than the other, or if you've tried these primers and which one is your favorite. I really hope that you guys enjoyed seeing this video and found it helpful. If you did, please make sure to give it a thumbs up. It really helps me out. Also, make sure you guys are subscribed to my channel before you leave. I would love to have you guys here as part of my little YouTube fam. If you don't want to miss out on any of my future videos, click that notification bell down below and you'll get notified every single time that I upload a new video. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and of course, I'll see you in my next one. Bye guys!